Yeah, welcome back to our discussion that we are talking about the social conditions of the Paleolithians. We have seen, we have discussed in our early part of our discussion. What is it? That the people knew the act of togetherness. And now we are going to discuss another two important concept in context to their social condition. The last two is the people they develop the concept of the friendship rather the hostility. That is most important. We must learn what today the practice of enmity. If we may talk about the different countries in the world, आमे जदि संप्रति समय रे आमे विश्व कथा आलोचना करिबा आमे देखुचे राष्ट्र राष्ट्र मध्य रे शत्रुता संपर्क रही. Very simple to talk about India. India has no good relationship with the neighboring states like Pakistan, the neighboring states like China. But we must keep in mind, we must respect the social notions of the Paleolithic age that friendship, dear friends, for the food collection, I am talking about the why friendship developed among the Paleolithians for two purposes. One is friendship developed for two purposes. One is, dear friends, collection of food, and the second one is self-protection. आत्मसुरक्षा पाई एवं शिकार करिबा खाद्य संग्रह करिया पाई से माने बंधुता संपर्क तैयारी करुथिले. And dear friends, that notion, that practice of the friendship led to the development of the social life. We see friendship leads to, yes, it is the fact. Where there is the friendship, there is the progress. Where there is the enmity, where there is the hostility, there is less progress. ଯେଉଁଠି ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ଭିତରେ ସୁସମ୍ପର୍କ ରହିଛି, where the bond is strong, there is the development, there is discipline, and where the bond is not strong, there is the hostility relations, there is the relation of the enmity, we see there is the less progress. So therefore we see it was the stigma of the Paleolithic age that friendship leads to three concepts. One is the social life, second one is the community life. Where there is the friendship, there is the social life. Where there is the social life, there is the community life. And dear friends, we may say that where there is the community life, there is the family life. There is the family life. So we came to know the Paleolithians, they had laid the solid foundation of their social relations, social knot in the society, social knot among the people. And another important thing is here, the Paleolithians, they were not familiar in the early stage, they were not familiar with the clothes, they were naked one. It was a glimpse about the social notions, social practices of the Paleolithians. Now, we are going to discuss the another aspect that is called the fiscal aspect. Everybody knows, we people know. Dear friends, economy pave the path of the solid foundation of the social life. आम देखुचे जे जेउठी अर्थनीतिर अभाव अछि सेठारे सामाजिक स्थिति, सामाजिक अवस्था सदाबले अस्थिर होई थाए. से दृष्टिकोण आम देखिबा जे पालेलिथियंस माने से माने किभली कि प्रकारर अर्थनीति को आपणे थिले. We are going to discuss the economic condition of the Paleolithians. We are talking about the fiscal conditions of the Paleolithians. We are talking about the physical conditions of the Paleolithians. Dear friends, when we may talk about the economy, we see the economy of the Paleolithians. It was based on two the economy or the physical condition was based on two. One is, we may call one is hunting and collection of food. शिकार करिबा एवं खाद्य संग्रह करिबा थिला तांकर अर्थनीति. एंड सबुठ बड़ा कथा थिला when we may talk about the practice of fishing. In the collection of the food, there was the practice of fishing. We may say that fishing, which means they were collecting the fishes. They were collecting the fishes from the river, from the streams or the streamlets. विभिन्न जलाशय से माछ धरुथिले. Simultaneously they were hunting. When to talk about hunting, particularly they hunt the deer. से माने कहार शिकार करुथिले ना, they hunt deer and rabbit. How we say that? How we believe that? The Paleolithians, we are familiar with the hunting of the rabbit and the deer. Yes, we must say that. Or from the archaeological excavations, आमे विभिन्न प्रत्नतात्विक खनन जानिछंती जे सेमानकर जो कंकाल मिलिछि, the skeletons, skulls of the different animals relating to the rabbit and the deer. Now we are talking about the another aspects, dear friends, particularly they mitigate to the Paleolithians, they were preserved the foods for a long period of time, particularly to mitigate the devastations of the natural devastations. एठी हमें दि प्रकार कथा देखिले जे जेते बेले हमें देखुछंती the collection of the food, they preserved it. खाद्य को सेमान संग्रह करुथिले एवं बहुत दिन पर्यंत किभली संरक्षित हेकि रहिबो, that act they knew because to mitigate the natural devastations. जेते बेले कोनसे प्राकृतिक दुर्विपाक ताकु सेमाने सेही समय ए खाद्य को से व्यवहार करिवे. And dear friends, when we are talking about the flesh, जेतले सेमाने शिकार करुथिले, and after eating, yes, there was the waste one, there was the staple one. सेमाने जो शिकार करुथिले, शिकार पोरे किछि मांस बळुथिला. What they were doing? They were not throwing it. We must learn that knowledge. We must learn that practice from the Paleolithians, that they knew how to preserve the foods. But what today we have noticed, आज आमे देखुछंती ए संप्रत समर देखुछंती, when the farmers are come forward to produce the huge amount of the food grains, आज आमे देखुछंती संप्रति समय रे जे कृषक माने जमीरु विभिन्न प्रकारर फसल उत्पन्न करुछंती, किंतु से फसल गुडी को संरक्षित सुरक्षित करी रखिबा पाई आम पाखरे व्यवस्था नाही. बट वी मस्ट से दैट. किंतु आम निश्चिंत भाव में कहि परिबा जेत आम पालेलिथियंस कथा आलोचना करुछंती, सेमाने बळका खाद्य को फोपाडु नथिले. दे वर नॉट थ्रोइंग द वेस्ट फूड, द स्टेपल फूड, ताकु से फिंगु नथिले. ताकु कोन करथिले, सेमाने सुरक्षित करी रखुथिले. दे न्यू द एक्ट ऑफ द प्रिजर्व द फूड्स. And most important thing in context of the flesh is concerned. आमे जिते बेले मांस कथा कहू, yes dear friends, they dried it. Very interesting concept. से माने Paleolithians माने शिकार कला पोरे खाई सारिबा पोरे जे मांस बळु थिला ताकू से माने सुखौ थिले. So very interesting concept. जहाँ को आमे कहू सुंठा मांस, dried flesh. The same practice today, if we may talk about in all over the world, particularly in Odisha, आमे जिते बेले ओडिशा रे ए कथा को देखिबा को पाऊ, move to the tribal areas, the people we are familiar with the dried flesh. आमे ओडिशा रे भी आमे देखू, आमे जदि आदिवासी इलाका को जाऊ, that practice I am talking about just 20 years back, that practice was continued in Narsimpur, Garjat, particularly the tribal tract, the hilly tracts. We are talking about the Dalak, Devabhui, Bada, Bhuska. These are the tribal places, tribal regions where the people we are using the practice of the dry flesh. जहाँ को आमे कहूचे सुंठा मांस. Its objective was to mitigate the shortage of the food, the scarcity of the food. जेते बेले आमे देखू जे खाद्यर अभाव घटुची खाद्यर अभाव अनंटन घटुची से समय ए मांस को से व्यवहार करुले. सो डियर फ्रेंड्स, इट वाज ऑल अबाउट द इकोनॉमिक लाइफ ऑफ द पालेलिथियंस एंड पर्टिकुलरली द इकोनॉमिक लाइफ इफ मे क्लासिफाई ब्रॉडली. आमे जदि पालेलिथियंस मानकर अर्थनैतिक जीवन को देखिबा, ये साधारणतः तीन भाग में विभक्त होता. गोटे आमे कहले हंटिंग, जहाँ आम कह शिकार करवा. देन इट वाज द कलेक्शन ऑफ द फूड एंड आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द फिजिकल कंडीशन ऑफ द पालेलिथियंस वाज ब्रॉडली क्लासिफाइड अंडर 3. वन इज collection of food. Then we may talk about hunting, and the third one is preserve the food. It was all about the economic conditions of the Paleolithians. ये थिला Paleolithians मानकर अर्थनैतिक दिग. Now we are going to discuss, dear friends, that we are talking about the clothes. Yes, we must say that the concept of the clothes was not earlier prevailed. Why we may say that? Because the people, they were leading their life without clothes. They were leading the lives just like the wild animals. आमे जेतल पालेलिथिक कथा को देखुछंती, सेमानंकर सामाजिक अवस्थार ये होची गोटे दिग, that is called the clothes. प्रथमे सेमाने कोनोसी पोशाक परिधान करू नथिले. The practice of the clothes was not prevalent among the Paleolithians. They were naked and moved like the wild animals. Later on, when the practice of hunting came to their lifestyle, when the practice of hunting came to as an action to lead the better social life, so, and in the meantime, they learned the act of using the clothes. Earlier it was not there. And what kind of the clothes they used? They used the box, the same thing we are talking about what earlier, the box, or we may talk of the leaves, or we may talk about skin of the animals. जेतले आमे सेमानकर पोशाक कथा को देखुचे, सेमान तीनटा यूज करथिले, box, we may talk about the skin, leaves, गछर छेली, पत्र एवं चमड़ा पशु मानकर चमड़ा को से व्यवहार करी तांकर पोशाक बनाउथिले. And most important thing is here, they were cautious. They were familiar with the concept of the shame and the chastity. In this regard, the women also used the clothes, particularly the flowers they used. And particularly when we are talking about the biological parts of the woman was covered by the flower garlands. Women used the flower garland. नारी माने वस्त्र हिसाब रे से माने फूलों को सजाउथिले गुंथि के से तांकर शरीर particularly the biological parts they covered. Now dear friends, we are going to discuss the most important aspects that we are talking about the fire, invention of fire. Invention of fire. जितेबेले आमे नियार उत्पत्ति कथा देखू, when we are talking about the development, the invention of the fire, yes, the time trace back to the Paleolithic age. Or the Paleolithians for the first time in the world introduced the concept of the fire. Now question comes, how the fire was usually developed? Yes, with the support of the wind we see in the jungle, in the forest. There was the class of the branches of the tree or the class of the bamboos. जेतेबेले आमे नियार उत्पत्ति कथा को देखुछंती, आमे पालेलिथिक को चली जिबा, सेठी आमे देखिले जे जंगल मानकरे प्राकृतिक उपाय रे, in naturally the practice of the fire was caught in the forest. प्राकृतिक उपाय रे निया लागुथिला, पवन सहायता रे डाल गछर डाल को डाल घसी होथिला, बाउंस देर घसी होथिला, सेथुर निया उत्पन्न होथिला. And ultimately that fire we see, we are talking about the burning fire in the forest. से निया पूरा जंगल को व्यापी जाऊला एंड देयरफॉर इन कंटैक्ट विथ द फायर्स वी सी मेनी बर्ड्स वी मे टॉक अबाउट द फ्रूट्स वी मे टॉक अबाउट द एनिमल्स दे वी आर बर्नड ए जो निया लगुला से निया पशु पक्षी फल एवं आमे कहू जे एमाने सबू पोड़ी जाऊले सो ई पीपल सी दैट द Paleolithians they were watching they were intact to see how the fires are developed निया केमिति लागुची एक प्रैक्टिस ए प्रक्रिया को Paleolithians माने अनुक्षण करुथिले से माने देखुथिले and later on when they could able to in contact with the burnt animals नियारे पोड़ी जाउथिबा पोड़ी जाइथिबा पशु पक्षी मानकर मांस खाइबा द्वारा तांको बहुत सुस्वादु लागिला जहाकू आमे कहू जे पोड़ा मांस या पूर्वरु दे वर हैविंग द रॉ फ्लेश कंचा मांस खाउथिले एंड दे केम टू नो टू अडॉप्ट द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ द बर्न्ड फ्लेश एबे से पोड़ा मांस खाय को लागिले एंड दे कुड एबल टू मेक द कंपैरिजन ऑफ द रॉ फ्लेश एंड द वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द बर्न्ड फ्लेश पोड़ा मांस एवं कंचा मांस भीतर से पार्थक्य जानिले एंड देयरफॉर दे वर इन सर्च ऑफ द इन्वेंशन ऑफ द फायर बिकॉज दे वांटेड फायर कुड डिटरमाइन द लाइफस्टाइल ऑफ द Paleolithians and therefore they started to invent fire with the support of in the different ways they prepare the fires आम देखिबा the Paleolithians they developed fires in the different means को प्रकार से माने निया को उत्पन्न करुथिले प्रथमे आम देखिले क्लासिंग ऑफ द स्टोन से माने दुई खंड पत्थर नौथिले से पत्थर को घसी से निया बाहर करथिले जहाको परवर्ती समय कहा गला द चकमकी पत्थर so it was the means through which the Paleolithians developed fire number 1 number 2 class of the branch of the wood we are talking about wood दुई खंड काठर साहाय्य ताकू से घसी घर्षण करी से निया उत्पन्न करुथिले द थर्ड बैम्बोज से माने बांबो बाउंस काठी को साहाय्य से माने निया उत्पन्न करुथिले एंड द फोर्थ वन it was very interesting no doubt we must say that the scholars the historians they have been pointed out that action that practice of the invention of the fire no doubt it was one of the intellectual development it was one of the advancement of the knowledge when to talk about the Paleolithians concern आमे जदि Paleolithians मानकर कथा देखिबा सेमान कोन करथिले ना गोटे काठरे गोटे कणा करथिले they were making hole in a wood एक खंड काठरे से माने गोटे कणा करुथिले एवं आउ एक गोजिया काठ साहाय्य with support of the pointed wood अनेक गोजिया काठी साहाय्य से माने कणारे काठीटा को बुलाउथिले एवं सेथुरु अग्नि उत्पन्न करुथिले yes we must say that what the notions of the invention of fire now we people are having it in our pocket से जो नियार उद्भावन कथा आज 21 शताब्दी रे आमे ताकू पॉकेट रे रखि बुलुचे in name of the matches in name of the lighter so dear friends when we are talking about the fire, the invention of fire determined the lifestyle. It helps the human progress. आमे जितले नियार उद्भावन कथा देखिले Paleolithics मानकर ये थिला से मानकर बौद्धिक शक्ति रे विकास एवं मनुष्य जो जीवन रे विकास धारा रो ये थिला अयमारंभ. After the invention of the fire, dear friends, we are going to discuss that is the invention of the language. We are going to discuss the invention of the language. Invention of language. As we people see that, जेतेबेला आमे भाषा कथा कहूचे भाषा हेउची प्रत्येक सभ्यतार प्रत्येक व्यक्तिर प्रत्येक मानव जातिर चाबिकाठी. Why? Now, due to the language, we people could able to share our sorrows, our happiness, our pleasure, our thinking ability, our thinking process with others. And by that way, we people could have been able to establish the better social life. ତେଣୁକରି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଭାଷାର ଉତ୍ପନ୍ନ କଥା ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା, in the beginning the Paleolithians, they were not familiar with any kind of the languages. They used simply the symbols. ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲେ the language started by the Paleolithians with symbols, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ଠାର। ତାହେଲେ ସେ ଠାରକୁ ସେମାନେ ଦୁଇ ଭାଗରେ ବିଭକ୍ତ କରୁଥିଲେ। କେମିତି? when the Paleolithians were in trouble, ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ କୌଣସି ଅସୁବିଧାରେ ପଡ଼ୁଥିଲେ, they were giving the symbol like this much. It proves that the Paleolithians or someone is in trouble and he or she needs the support of others. And it was the means, it was the symbol that to come. It was the symbol to come. And another types of the symbol they used when particularly the people wanted to do or to steal the dry flesh, or may talk about the fruits preserved by the people. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ଖାଦ୍ୟର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ପଡ଼ୁଥିଲା ଏବଂ ସେମାନେ ଅନ୍ୟ ଜଣେ ସଂରକ୍ଷିତ କରି ରଖିଥିବା ଖାଦ୍ୟକୁ ସେ ଚୋରେଇବା ପାଇଁ ଯାଉଥିଲା, in the meantime they were using the symbol that this, it means you go away, तुमे चली जाओ. So therefore I am talking to, in the initial stage the Paleolithians, they were communicated to each other on the basis of the language, and in the fact or later on we may say, particularly the time of the Homo habilis, we see Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Homo erectus to Homo sapiens. And the practice of the language, therefore the historians, in context to the history, in context to the prehistory, the scholars have been, the historians have been pointed out that Homo habilis, we are talking about Homo habilis. They were the first who used the language. ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପୁରାତନ ପ୍ରସ୍ତର ଯୁଗର କଥା ଆଲୋଚନା କରୁଛେ, ତାଙ୍କର ଭାଷାକୁ ଆଲୋଚନା କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲେ ଯେ ହୋମୋ ହାବିଲିସ୍ ମାନେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ସେମାନେ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜକୁ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରିଥିଲେ। କାହିଁକି ନା ଦେୟାର ୱାଜ୍ ଦ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ। ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ କାଇଣ୍ଡ ଅଫ୍ ଦ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ? ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ଇନ୍ ସାଇଜ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଦି ହେଡ୍। ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ହୋମୋ ହାବିଲିସ୍ଙ୍କ କଥାକୁ କହିବା, ସେତେବେଳେ ଦେୟାର ହେଡ୍ ୱାଜ୍ ଲାର୍ଜ। Dear friends, the Homo habilis, they possessed the large head. ସେମାନଙ୍କର ମସ୍ତିଷ୍କ ଉଚ୍ଚତର ଥିଲା, ଉଚ୍ଚକୋଟୀର ଥିଲା ଏବଂ ମସ୍ତିଷ୍କ ସାଧାରଣତଃ ବଡ଼ ଥିଲା, ଲାର୍ଜ ସାଇଜ୍ ହେଡ୍ ଥିଲା। and by that way the Homo habilis for the first time they could able to communicate, able to memorize, and we may talk about listen, speaking and memorize. तीनटा कथा में देखिले Homo habilis developed speaking, memorize and listen. So these were the three important practices when we are talking about the Paleolithians concerned. And it was another the cardinal feature when we are talking about the language of the particular the Paleolithians. Dear friends, we are going to discuss another important areas of their cultural aspects, cultural pattern. What was it? It was the concept of the painting that we are talking about, the Chitrakala. And it was the means when we are talking about the paintings, yes, the Paleolithians, they are familiar with the paintings. Through the paintings, they could able to transmit their ideas. ସେମାନେ ଚିତ୍ରକଳା ଦ୍ୱାରା ତାଙ୍କର ଚିନ୍ତାଧାରାକୁ ସେମାନେ ରିଫ୍ଲେକ୍ଟ କରୁଥିଲେ। If today we may talk about, we move to any temples, we move to any architectural features in all over the world, what do we see? We see the reflection of the human thought. We see the reflection of the society. We see the reflection of the planning and the management. So we are going to discuss now the important areas of the painting of the Paleolithians. So dear friends, when we talk about the painting, we see normally from the excavations, archaeological excavations, we have been noticed that many articles we discovered, and in each and every articles we notice some art form of the Paleolithians. आमे जो प्रत्नतात्विक खनन रो आमे जो सब विभिन्न प्रकार सामग्री को पाई छंती से विभिन्न प्रकार सामग्री रे आमे देखि छंती जे पालोलिथियंस माने से माने विभिन्न प्रकार रो चित्र आंकी छंती. We noticed the art form, and that art form was usually reflected on the tools, or we may talk about the cave walls. That painting, according to the authority of the rock art, according to the anthropologists or the archaeologists, they call it the rock art painting or the rock art. We see the painting reflects on the cave walls. We call it rock art. rock art. जहाँ को कहूचे शैल चित्र. Dear friends, we people, particularly Odisha, is fortunate to have that rock art. Where in Odisha we see there is the Usakoti, Kantabanji, and at Khandagiri and Udayagiri. We see in context to Odisha, we notice some of the Paleolithian cultures, and it is deciphered on the basis of the paintings, art paintings. आमे देखिछंती the authority of the rock art in Odisha, Professor Sadashiv Pradhan, the former professor of Department of Archaeology, Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology, Utkal University. And if people say, dear friends, when we may talk about the art form, the paintings, what kind of the paintings usually they were familiar with? They were familiar with both the floras and the faunas. Dear friends, उभय पशुपक्षी एवं उद्भिद जगत को सेमाने तांकर चित्र द्वारा से ताकू उपस्थापना करुथिले. And mostly they were engraved, they were drawn that pictures on the cave walls. Why? We see in the earlier part, they were living in the caves. सेमाने गुम्फारे रहुथिले. So when they were living in the caves, they wanted to share their feelings by drawing the pictures and by drawing the paintings on different, we are talking about the animals, birds and the plants. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ ଉଭୟ ଉଦ୍ଭିଦ ଏବଂ ପ୍ରାଣୀ କୁ ସେମାନେ ଚିତ୍ର ଦ୍ୱାରା ଗୁମ୍ଫାର ଗାତ୍ରରେ ସେମାନେ ତାକୁ ଆଙ୍କୁଥିଲେ. And for making it colorful, yes, they used the orange color, जहाँ को मैं कहूँचे कमला रंग बा गेरु रंग को सेमाने व्यवहार करुथिले. Its objective was to make picture more clarity, to make picture for the long preservation or the conservation as means. छवि गुड़िक बा चित्र गुड़िक दीर्घ दिन पर्यंत रखिबा पाई एवं चित्र गुड़िक सुंदर भाबरे उपस्थापना करिबा पाई. The people of the Paleolithic age or the Paleolithians, they were familiar with the application of the color to make it more gorgeous, to make it more colorful. Dear friends, we are going to discuss the last part, that we are talking about the weapons. Yes, it is the fact that when we are talking about the concept of the weapons, yes, it was determined the life of the Paleolithians. So, weapon played an important role to accelerate their social status. In this regard, they used the 4 important weapons. Like we may talk about the knife. They used the knife, axe, arrow, dagger. So these were the weapons used by the Paleolithians. And in this regard, we must keep in mind why they used it. They used it for, sometimes we see cutting of the fruits as far as their food habit is concerned. They used it for hunting. So when we may talk about the fruits cutting, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ସେମାନେ ଫଳକୁ କାଟିବା ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ୱିପନ୍ସ ବା ଆମେ କହିପାରେ ତାକୁ ଟୁଲ୍ସ ସେ ଇନଭେଣ୍ଟ କରିଥିଲେ। ସେଇ ଭିତରୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା that instruments were so thin, the thin instruments used for the cutting of the fruits, and also they used, dear friends, when we are talking about the different kinds of the what exactly I am talking to, the cleaning of the skins of the animals. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସେମାନେ କହୁ ଯେ ପଶୁ ପକ୍ଷୀ ମାନଙ୍କ ଦେହରୁ ଯେ ସେ ଚମଡ଼ାକୁ କାଢ଼ୁଥିଲେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେମାନେ ଅସ୍ତ୍ରଶସ୍ତ୍ର ବ୍ୟବହାର କରୁଥିଲେ। ସୋ ଇଟ୍ ୱାଜ୍ a complete picture, we got a complete picture about the Paleolithic culture. And another important thing we are going to say, just 1 to 3 areas we are going to highlight. Dear friends, on the basis of the archaeological excavations, we see that the Paleolithic culture was classified under 4 important cultures. So in this regard, one culture we call it the Acheliu culture. It was relating to the Paleolithic age. And the second one is the Abbevillian culture. We may talk about the Abbevillia culture, Acheliu culture, Cactonic culture, and the fourth one we are talking about the Levacoisia culture. Thank you.